nerds. This is Stephen Nerd. I'm your host, Sarah Belmont, and with me, as always, is our Mr. Producer, Will Polk. How are you doing tonight, Will?
Doing very well, Sarah. How you doing this evening?
I'm doing fine. I'm like excited to sit down and talk to you, Will, but I really could care less about 75% of the things on this rundown.
Well, way to give the listener something to look forward to.
Well, they know me. They know what to expect.
Yeah, but if there's their first time listening to the podcast, they don't know you. But I guess now they do.
Well, you know what? Go back and listen to previous podcasts. Like, I think some of our listeners know what they're going to get from me. If I don't like something, I will say it.
Yeah.
And I will mock it.
Yeah. Oh, I know, and I am the same way. So where do we want to start tonight? Well, the good thing, 75% of the rundown is the things that people have probably heard a lot about, but we're going to give our little spin on it. So
yeah. But before we do that, we do have a bunch of news. Not like big things that we have to spend hours talking about, although like the first thing I feel like we talk about at least once a month, because Will always likes to tell me this is the new Feige of DC. Yeah. Before anything has happened, like all it's been is confirmed, and then Will's automatically anointing the person. I feel like if DC Studios only knew, Will, that you did this, yeah, they would probably call you up and be like, can you please stop jinxing us?
No jinxing this time. It has officially happened. The first day of the job happened on Tuesday, and that is James Gunn and Peter Safran taking over the reins of the new DC Studios.
But that still doesn't mean that they are officially the Feige. They can totally fuck everything up.
Yeah, they could fuck everything up
5 times.
Yeah, they could fuck everything up. But Feige himself said he will be the first guy in the line to see what they come up with. So, I mean...
absolutely, because they have always said there is no rivalry between these. Like, there's a fan rivalry that dates back to the comic books, but there's no rivalry between these studios in the sense of like, oh, I can't believe you're just copying us. No.
Right. Not at all. Yeah.
No. Yeah. So, I mean, we'll see. I'm not holding my breath about anything DC does. DC has still, like, it's weird to me. It reminds me very much of what's going on with the CW right now. Where we've known about this whole deal with Nexstar for months. What feels like almost a year. And yet, while this is all going on, all of these shows like Winchester's, the prequel to Walker, other shows are getting renewed, and seasons, like approved seasons of television to see if they can be a successful show. But now that the deal has officially happened, everyone's like, oh my God, I can't believe they would cancel all of these shows that are making no money.
Yeah.
And have barely any viewers.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's funny that you don't. It's one of those things, I guess, and maybe it's just because you and I are too close to this stuff that we can't. We recognize the business aspect of these shows and realizing, like, if there were on any other of the traditional networks, most of the stuff on the CW would have been canceled long ago. But yeah, you're right. I mean, that is true. That the news, for example, of this week, Stargirl getting canceled, it was really no big surprise to me, given where things stand with that network, because and even Jeff Johns himself said and it's also with The Flash. With their showrunner also said the same thing. All these showrunners were given the heads up, hey, write your seasons like this could be season or series finales.
Right.
And so and apparently Stargirl filmed two endings, depending on whether or not the new team was going to renew it or decide to end it. So that happened, and then also, like you said, with the Winchesters and some of these other the Walker spinoff, they only had their initial 13 run episode, and they're not ordering the back order for the second half of a season. So yeah, it is what it is. I mean, the next star is coming in, and they don't want to be sinking money into this venture. I mean, they're there to make a profit because that's what pays the bills.
Right. And my whole comparison with DC is that they're constantly getting the quote unquote new Feige, while all of these other projects are still going on. Like they haven't released Flash yet, or Aquaman 2. Who knows what's going on with Wonder Woman 3? Did anybody watch the second one?
Yeah.
I think that ended it.
Yeah.
So,
and you're right.
We're getting all of these casting announcements, and now with spoiler alert, what happens in the after credit scene of Black Adam with Henry Cavill? Like, I'm just thinking to myself, it's not like James Gunn put these pieces in place.
Right.
So, or maybe he did. Maybe he had a lot of creative control, especially when he was brought on for the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker. So maybe, but still, it seems a bit like, dude, you have to not only finish this game, but start a whole new one that'll like take it to the next level. And also tell The Rock that he signed up to play a villain. Just remind him of that.
Well, yeah, and I think that's
Black Adam, everyone.
yeah. I mean, I think that it really is like he basically is like the coach who has and Safran as well, who's going to handle the business side of things, and James Gunn is going to handle the creative side. But you are like the coach and GM coming into a situation where you are inheriting a team like in halfway through a season, to a football analogy. And you just got to just sort of ride this season out with what you have, because, for example, as we were talking before we started recording, Black Adam is probably barely break even, if it breaks even at all, because from this first weekend to its second, it had like a massive drop off. Yes, people are excited about Henry Cavill coming back as Superman, but at the same time, you're having people grumble that it's not the Snyderverse Superman, because apparently they will probably put a different spin on the character, even though it's the same actor, is going to take it in a different direction. So yeah.
But see, I'm mad about this whole Superman mess, because now he's walking away from The Witcher season 4, and Liam Hemsworth is going to take over for him, as if that's like not going to be the most jarring thing. and there's just something about Henry Cavill in that role. Like, I think season 1 is superior than season 2. I don't think we'll have finished season 2, everyone, but I do. There's something about the show with the cast that elevates, and I don't know. I don't know. Like, I was really bummed when I saw that headline, and I'm like, you're going back to the soup, the soup that took you, like. For the 10-year sequel in the making. Oh my God.
Yeah. True. But it's Superman versus, I mean,
I totally understand. I'm not mad at the choice of, like, I understand it, but as a viewer and what I like to watch, I'd rather see him in The Witcher season 4 than play Superman.
Yeah, true. But I also heard other issues. I think some of the concerns I think that I've heard he had was sort of the direction that the writers were taking The Witcher, because apparently he was really a stickler for wanting to stick with the source material, and things were not going the way that he would creatively would have liked for them to go. So I think that also played a role into it. And he probably, I mean, given how quick this happened, he only had a 3-season deal, because they have finished filming season 3,
right?
And so and with all these other things happening, it was maybe a creatively and financially a good time to just walk away, and especially if there were just some creative tensions, or also maybe he was just kind of bored and wants to, like, have another shot at Superman, and hopefully maybe with new creative energy, this character that he clearly does have a passion for, can give him a fresh take on Superman that is maybe more creatively fulfilling for him than playing another season of Galt on The Witcher.
Right. Yeah. And speaking about Netflix, I was surprised but pleased, even though you like this series more than I did, but the Sandman did get renewed for a second season.
Yeah. I was happy about that.
Unexpectedly. Like, oh, really? Cool.
Yeah. I was happy about that news too, because I think it took a minute to get going, but I did like overall. I think I did like the first season, and it would have been a shame, given how well that show was adapted from the source material,
right.
That it didn't get further opportunities to flesh that universe out.
Yeah, I think if they hadn't renewed it, I would have been fine, because it was a very consolidated story. However, the world building that occurred, especially towards the end, it was like, okay, I want to see, now that I understand the world and the characters, I want to see an adventure, you know what I'm saying? I want to see, like, because I feel as though why that first season was so, I feel so mixed about, it's just because they did so much exposition and so much world building. And there's a whole episode where the main character barely says anything and is naked the whole time. So it's very weird. But I do admit, like, there are some very smart and creative choices, especially in that last episode.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, the cereal convention.
Yeah.
Okay, what are we doing here? What is this She-Hulk writing? No, but very pleased about that. But the cherry on top for me this week is confirmation about the premiere of The Last of Us on HBO Max. It will come out January 15th of next year for a 9-episode run. Thank God, because we've only been 1 week without House of Dragon. And I'm not saying that this is going to, like, come close to House of Dragon. But over the last year, Will and I often have found ourselves, like, with, like, HBO Max is like, oh, here's this show. And we're like, okay, we will talk about it.
Yeah.
So, and I know Titans premiered today on HBO Max. I'm so looking forward to talking about it. But I'm just excited because I feel like it's gonna help this lull.
Yeah, we do have. Well, good thing about it. Yeah, we'll have What's that?
That the Kermit tweet you put on Twitter about Sunday night? I was like, oh well, what have I done to you? Poor guy.
Oh yeah. I am so thankful for at least 3 more weeks. I have Andor, which I know we'll talk about here shortly, because that, between House of the Dragon and Andor, that carried me through this fall TV season. I mean, I know we'll have Doom Patrol coming up in December, because Titans Part 1 does start today, and we'll start talking about it next week. But yeah, I'm looking forward to The Last of Us. I don't know that much about it, but when I saw that trailer, I was like, oh yeah, this looks like it's going to be one of those water cooler type shows where it's definitely gonna be something special.
Yep. And before we talk about Andor, we do have one bit of Disney Plus news, as Yahya Abdul-Mateen II has been cast as the lead of the new Wonder Man, and the last time we saw him, or last time I saw him, was in Aquaman.
Oh yeah, but also The Watchmen. He was
right. I was like, this guy had a moment, and then the Watchmen ended, and then Aquaman was Aquaman.
Yeah.
And we haven't seen an Aquaman 2. So now that you brought that up, it's like all coming back to me. And you know what? Yeah. This is good. Good casting. Yeah. Very curious. I think, despite what we feel about the Disney Plus shows and the quality, I think for the actors, they're just like a kid in a candy store and being like, you want me? You're inviting me to the club?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I would like to go shopping.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I right before we started recording, I just happened to see that Bob Odenkirk from Better Call Saul is also rumored to be cast in a role in Wonder Man as well.
See, there we go. Yeah. I mean, Breaking Bad actors coming over to the MCU. Yeah. Nothing wrong about that.
Not at all.
Okay. Clearly I'm losing my steam or something's going on. But so we will jump over into Andor. Okay, well, I know you're really excited to talk about this. And I actually am too. I was kind of like the other night when we did our Game of Thrones recap, I was totally on board just talking Game of Thrones. But a lot has been happening with Andor, and we haven't had a chance to talk about him and Star Wars in a while. I still really wish this was released all at once. Or hear me out. The first 3 episodes dropped, and we all agreed. Thank God they did that, because the way those episodes went together, it was like, okay, I'm on board. Like, that is one short story. And I feel like we keep getting short stories, but the week to week of it all is killing me. With that being said, even though I still find it to be a bit slow, like, remove the eye episode, but a lot of it to be a little bit slow, I do appreciate how everything is coming together and connected. The dramatic irony of Deirdre and Cyril looking for Andor while he's already locked up. Like, that isn't lost on me. There's something really fascinating about that. I also think why this show, a lot of viewers are enjoying it, and especially in comparison to other Star Wars properties, is because Deirdre and Cyril are written so well.
Yeah.
They are the bad guys. And yet, especially Deirdre, up until this latest episode with Biggs, you really don't see her do anything that bad. Like, it's just she's an officer, she's a supervisor, she's doing paperwork, she's investigating crimes. Like, we've seen detective movies, like, that's what she's doing. She's trying to one-up these stupid superiors who are just ignoring her. And so you're kind of rooting for her, and then they're like, oh, just when you thought you could actually like her, she's gonna torture Biggs.
Yeah.
But technically she sets it up, but she wasn't the one who actually put the helmet on her. I'm just saying.
She didn't do the, she doesn't do the dirty work, but she definitely saw it. But she definitely gives the order.
Right, and I like that final moment where she's really trying to talk Biggs into telling her the truth. And for a moment, I honestly was like, "Oh, Biggs is gonna start talking," and she was, and she did, and all she said was, "You're not gonna believe me, whatever I say." And it's kind of like, I think Deirdre honestly respected that. She's like, you know what? I'm not, so why waste any more time?
Yep.
Like, even if you tell me the truth, I'm not going to believe it and have to torture you. So let's just cut to the chase. So I really, Deirdre, I was a Cyril fan, even though he got demoted and we've been watching his journey. When, like, one of my favorite scenes is the interrogation between him and Deirdre.
Yeah.
It's so like, I don't know what it is about them, but she is way out of his league. He just couldn't believe, like, this isn't what I put in my report, or I've never read this and it was all wrong, and why doesn't anyone believe me about my boyfriend? And then I like the fact that in this latest episode, he is now stalking her.
Yep. It was, so speaking of that stalking, because her reaction after the confrontation on the street, you could read it, it's one of those weird, like, things where, on the one, she's such a cool customer. I mean, she does nothing phases her, but she was clearly, like, flustered after that whole encounter. So was she flustered because they have, like, this? They have this, like, she was flustered because of the fact that he stalked her, and it was just the uncomfortableness of that action. Or is it like this, like, super secret, like, even though ideologically they are compatible, is there, like, some, like, sexual tension or something between them? Because I mean, whenever she was so flustered, I was just like, this reaction is very normal, given what had just encountered. But then at the same time, I'm like, I wonder if they are going to end up hooking up somehow, either professionally or hey, fuck, I don't know.
Oh, I thought you meant, like, the actors for a moment. I was like, professionally, what is going on?
No, Deidre and Cyril, or Cereal. And see, that's all that was the other thing too, how he always, like, slurps his cereal with his mom.
Wait, so they would hook up professionally?
Yeah, I mean,
what do you mean to hook up professionally?
Well, like, she realized their mutual, like, obsession over Andor. Well, she finally, like, be like, okay, I can use this guy.
But does she have an obsession over Andor or Axis?
I think it's Axis, but
he has the obsession of Andor because of what Andor did to him, like, his association with that. She has had an obsession. I think her obsession is with Axis, and, like, she just knows Andor is the key to get to Axis.
Yeah. I think that's it. Yeah.
And I think, but I do like how you're explaining, like, there's a weird mix of emotions, and I think that is more authentic than if it was one way or the other, because on one hand, she's a boss, and she has her day planned out. She knows what to expect. She's constantly surprising her superiors about knowing what's going on, making these connections. She's moving up in the world. And then out of nowhere, this guy comes in and she realizes is stalking her. And he has this obsession that is linked to her current obsession at work. So I think there is a mix of emotions where on one hand she's like, oh, I'm flattered. Somebody's like really paying attention to me. Mm-hmm. Wow. But on the other hand, it's like, this is really creepy. Like, do you love Andor? Do you love me?
No, but I guess that's where I was getting at. That flattery, as you said, I think articulated it perfectly. As she is, because someone did notice her, and she climbing that corporate ladder in the ISB. She's had to deal with various glass ceilings and other incompetent boobs like Lieutenant Belmont, who clearly she was the better agent, but he had more bluster and that kind of stuff, and Peter Principle, he managed to fall into the better job until she proved otherwise, but she had to work twice as hard to show that she was the better, the more competent employee. Mm-hmm. So that was a sort of that dynamic with the stalking, and also again she is so on top of things, like you said, she is a boss, and for the way that whole scene played out, especially how he talked about how he was standing there and knowing her every move. I mean, it definitely probably put a big creep factor into her, because that it would be unnerving for anybody. And I think that's what's so great about this series, is that they have really taken great pains, and it's just to write these characters in a way that they are not two-dimensional. And I think, like, to your point, as we started the Andor discussion, that's where you do all of a sudden find yourself rooting for like the Empire personnel, because they are very three-dimensional and have things that they're just not mustache twirly villains.
Right. I guess I'm not really rooting for anyone, because this is a prequel. Mm-hmm. And so you kind of know where some of the stories are going, and you're just filling in the gaps. So I guess I think that's why what I'm surprised by how interested I am with some of these newer characters, which both Cyril and Deirdre are, of being like, okay, I'm curious to figure out what happens to them. Mm-hmm. Like this story and on. Are they is Deirdre gonna get killed by the end of this? And I was thinking about it last night after watching the episode. I was thinking to myself, I don't think Andor's going to take her out. I don't think it's going to be a rebel. There's something about the way her supervisor said to her, watch your back. Mm-hmm. That I'm like, she's going to get taken out by the Empire. Yeah, like, I think it's going to be so stupid, and people are going to be pissed about it.
Yeah, it could be her lieutenant, because the guy...
Could be Cyril,
Or it could be Cyril, or it could be her adjutant, because he is following a similar pattern where she did too, and again, it is the Empire, and everybody. That's the thing. When I say rooting, not necessarily rooting like rah rah. I want them to win, but it's more you're rooting for like you said that good story, because it's very fascinating to see where these characters are going to go and how they get there. Right. Even though globally we know the big picture as far as how everything unfolds, but since we're really digging into how evil the Empire is, and and seeing the atrocities that they committed, not in the abstract way, like for example, we've seen in other shows, even like in Obi-Wan. We had the hanging on Tatooine, but here, like speaking of Bix, when we're back at Ferrex, I mean, there is a character with Pac who we've gotten to know that the Empire was like, that agent was like, I really want to hang this guy, and Dedra was like, okay, but we got to keep Bix alive, so it's just like, it's putting that extra level to it, especially by with the writing in the show, having us care about some of these secondary characters. Just makes it to me more fascinating a journey than I've seen, quite frankly, in Star Wars since Empire. So
Right.
And why for me the show has like sort of been, House of the Dragon was 1A and this is like 1B as far as like must watch TV, because both of these shows have just delivered so well with the writing with these very complex characters.
Right. Like you were saying, just curious about where the story goes. I was very surprised when not only did they lock up Andor or Kreef, but he's still in the prison.
Yeah.
I was like, we're still here. We're still here. And the way there's something about the writing and the how do I put this? The cadence of the exposition that occurs while you're being introduced to the prison, while you're being introduced to the prisoners and the guards, that worked very well. And now in this latest episode, I don't know. To me, like, I'm thinking to myself, Cassie, didn't you get here like 5 days ago? Why are you? I mean, you knew from A1 he was scoping out the place of like, how the heck do I get out of here?
Right.
But still, I don't know. I felt like they pressed fast forward on through some emotional things, and I don't know. I felt, especially his relationship with the other prisoners, like I was like, whoa, when did this friendship occur? What's going on here? But then again, I don't think we need to spend a full episode just to get that development either, because that would just be boring. But I really have found that I like the prison aspect and how we're going to have a prison break. Andy Serkis gets his redemption back on Star Wars in a very unexpected way. Like, nobody knew about this.
No, nobody did. Yeah.
I mean, hats off to you for finally keeping a secret.
Yeah, that was one hell of a secret they kept, because we showed up last week, and then of course, with all the theories started happening, like, is this, the Snoke, it was going to, with what's his name, Kyros, I think. Was he going to become Snoke or whatever? We're going to use that. But then this week we realize, but really you get more development. He was just a company guy, like trying to just like, look, we have the jobs to do. It's, like you said, Andor was already in that place trying to scope things out.
He had hope.
And then Kiro was like, we have shifts to manage, and keep your head down, do your job. Because
he had hope. He still had hope that there would be, I just have to get through this and then I'm free. Yeah. And I think that the way they structured him, they did a good job developing him and making him realize in that moment when they talk about what did happen on level 2, like, that's all fiction. They are never getting out of here. They have to get out themselves if they ever do, because the Empire won't let it, because that's how the system is designed. It's these people. And Cassian knew straight away. But I appreciate that, because especially how they introduce everything to the viewer in a way you're also like, okay, yeah. We're going to be here for 6 years.
Yeah. I mean,
okay, do what you got to do. Yeah. But there is, and then the more it goes on and you hear about level 2, the more it's the reality of it is like, no, you think you're getting out, but you're really not, because the Empire, and I didn't think about this, but and listening to others talk about the show who are much bigger fans of Star Wars in general than I am or ever will be, I do think that the show has done a good job about the rebellion needs not only money, which is a whole issue that Mon Mothma is facing, but it needs people. And people, there's a reason why leaders rise to power. It's because if you can make people content with life and that's just the way it is, then okay. But by Luthen setting off the arson robbery, the Empire is suddenly like, oh, we are way too lax. We are gonna buckle down, lock up all of these innocent people, do this, do that. And then suddenly people are not content. And it's like, holy shit, I didn't realize where I was, like the world I was living in. I need to do something about my situation. And so it's interesting to me how on one hand, he has made the world for so many people so much worse, but it's needed in order for people to get mad, for people to get angry enough to take on the challenge of overthrowing the Empire.
Yeah. And I think that was definitely, to your point, definitely illustrated when Mon Mothma was speaking to the Imperial Senate about how people there were the cat calls, they were just people were checked out, as far as from the political aspect of the rot from within the system and the content, and then but also when you look at in her own family, like her husband and daughter and stuff, they are very content with their lives, and when the Aldhani robbery did happen, the reaction not only of the Empire to with the Pord rules, but also just a general with this general populace of people like, oh, what it wasn't like this spark of rebellion. It was more like, oh, we got to crack down on these people, these criminals, because they're messing up our comfortable lives here. These are just criminals, and they're messing things up. And then and to the jail point, you see how I think the title of the episode this week's "Nobody's Listening," and that was the prisoners in the prison. Andy Serkis's character was thinking that the Imperials and other folks were thinking like, keep your head down, because if they start seeing these hand signals and stuff, they're going to like figure out that we're all communicating between these levels and stuff, and it's going to just cause a even greater crackdown than that. We're all going to get fried on the bridge. But in reality, they weren't listening. But they had created the illusion of listening and an illusion of control as far as the Empire. And so it's all these different levels in this society showing how the Empire has taken control, because nobody's listening in the Senate as Mon Mothma is trying to warn them of the dangers that the Emperor's doing. Nobody's listening as far as the comfortable class, because like you said, everybody's comfortable. Even though and Luthen set this thing, set this rebellion off with the robbery, but the Empire, just basically tightens the screws on the populace to try to regain order. And so it's just I love the attention to detail that Tony Gilroy and the writing team has done in setting out how this society is working at this point at the peak of the Empire's dominance.
Right. Definitely.
Yeah. So yeah, speaking of Mon Mothma, I know we got a little bit more texture about her family and Vel. I guess Vel's her cousin.
Yep.
Yeah.
Did not coming, but it makes sense.
Yeah, especially with Cinta talked, a few episodes back where she was like talked about. She could tell she came from wealth, but who knew that it was Mon Mothma herself. I thought she was. Right. I thought it was. That did catch me by surprise. I thought maybe Luthen was her like uncle or something like that. I thought that would be the relationship, but that was a good little twist that they put there. As far as and the whole discussion at dinner, like how Mon Mothma's husband was like, basically calling her an old maid, and how he was treating her. It's just like, again, just how many more ways can this guy just be just a scumball? Like, get rid of him already.
Yeah. My last thing that I wanted to mention is I only found out like 20 minutes ago that the actress who plays Vel appeared in Game of Thrones, I think season 4 or season 5. I kind of forget when this happens, but for viewers or listeners, it's the season where Arya is with the faceless men, and the actress who plays Vel also played one of the trainees alongside Arya, and is like the girl with the bowl haircut. So I don't even remember her name. I do remember being like, what a bitch. But yeah, it wasn't like one of the best storylines that have happened in the series. However, but I did find out interesting. Any more thoughts on Andor before we jump over to the Valley?
Just a couple quick little notes. Speaking of Cyril and his mother again, I love their scenes together, especially like whenever she found out he got a promotion, how she was just bad mouthing him, and then whenever he's like, "I got a promotion," she's like, "Oh, you're all right then. You're a big man on campus," and I just love their anytime the Cyril and his mother have scenes together, they're always just really, really fun to watch. And then last, just one little like interesting Easter egg callback to tying this Star Wars universe together, which was during the torture scene with Bix when they broke away when the door closed. It was the shot was just like the torture scene from A New Hope when the Empire did the same thing to Leia when the door closed and the Imperial trooper walks away. It was like nice. Those are the little moments that even though there was not a single laser fired in this episode, there was definitely like influences from other prior live action versions of Star Wars in this show. So like I said, I'm just really, really enjoying this. I hate there's only like 3 episodes left because after this it may be a while before, maybe until January before we get another well-written show.
Oh, we do have the Guardians Christmas special.
Oh, yes, we do have the Guardians Christmas special. That's right.
However, I feel like we saw the entire thing in that trailer.
Yeah.
Okay, speaking about references to franchise and nostalgia, geez Louise. Okay, Cobra Kai season 5. Will made me watch it. Yeah, you did. You're just like, oh, Sarah, I've already watched it. I'm like, damn it.
And I also said, no pressure. We can get to it. We can get to it later this month.
So, okay. This season was better than season 4.
I agree.
I will say that. I do have a very big issue with the fact that it took, I think, like 3 or 4 episodes before Johnny and Danny shared any screen time together.
Yeah.
Which I'm sitting here and I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, why do these episodes at the very beginning, why do they feel like they're just lagging and like there's no movement and we're just resolving a lot of loose ends? And then it dawned on me, I'm like, John, wait, huh?
Yeah,
Johnny and Danny aren't doing anything together.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
these two have the best screen chemistry of the entire cast.
Yeah, they do.
And their rivalry turned into semi-friendship, turned back into like that is it. Who cares about Robbie and Miguel doing the same thing? Like, it's not the same, okay?
Nope.
We want that. So I had an issue there. I do greatly appreciate the minimal teenage angst. However, you could have reduced it like just a bit more. Who cares about Sam going on her journey to find herself? And that scene where Miguel cries, oh my God, that was some of the worst acting from that. Like, and at one point, he was the best kid actor on the show. I know he's probably not a kid anymore. He's probably like 20 or more older than that. But still, that was like some really bad acting. So
that was CW level angst there.
Yeah, but you know, at the end of the day, when you drop a Rocky 4 reference, like, I know people are clamoring about the Top Gun thing, and the Top Gun thing was cool. But for me as a kid, I didn't necessarily grow up with Top Gun. Like, I watched it when I was a kid, but like, there were weekends where TBS would only play Rocky movies, and I remember watching them every single time. So the moment that Johnny had that reference, I was like, good God.
Yep.
That's when I think this writing is stupid. They pull some smart, nostalgic stuff on me, and I'm like, God damn it. Yeah. And Johnny's the star of the show.
Yeah.
And that's about it. Those are basically all of my thoughts about Cobra Kai.
Yeah, I agree with you. The Mexico stuff was kind of like, well, but the fake car, you know, like with the projection in the background, where it was just like, and I get where they're coming from. Maybe I don't know if it was intentional or unintentional nostalgia, but like, you know, with 80s shows, and they were clearly in a soundstage, and they would have the projection of the street going, you know, as they're driving a car. And that was happening when they were in the Mexico scenes, because clearly, you know, they were just shooting on a back lot in Los Angeles. That kind of took me out of it. Not only that, but also just like, what's the whole point of this Mexico thing? Because it was like, we gotta like you said, tie up the loose ends from season 4, and of course deal with Miguel trying to find his father and stuff, and of course confirming that what we already knew, that his dad indeed was a bad guy, and then they do all that, and it also was just a way to sort of force the issue of getting breaking the ice between Miguel and Robbie. So I mean, it was, you know, so it was kind of like telegraphing stuff. But the thing about this show, and I even joked with you whenever I was starting to watch it, but it still sucks me in for whatever reason. I don't know what it is about it, but I end up just like, I rarely like binge things, like really binge things but this show is the one show that I just get sucked in, and next thing you know, I'm like, oh, I just like watched 4 episodes.
Yeah. I would hate watching it. Like, let's be honest. I knocked out the entire thing in one afternoon, but I was definitely like, God, it's continuing. Just thinking through it. How many more episodes to left? And like, I was just spoiled with season 1. Season 1 is a great season of television, and I was very surprised by it. But that left me with some expectations, and even though I think I'm like in the minority, where season 2 I actually thought was pretty good as well, but then it just continues to drop. And like I said at the beginning, I do find this season works better than the previous season as a whole. Like it goes back to what we were saying about Andor's, where like I think I spent a good 10 minutes just talking about the quote unquote villains.
Mm-hmm. This
show, the villains are so stupid.
Yeah.
Like, well, they're I get it why, like, it's intentionally supposed to be that way, but when Kreese like literally walks out of jail, I'm like, there's a line here. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things we talked about prior seasons, I mean, the suspension of disbelief is like, you just don't even have that. You know, they shattered that with like these kids going from like not knowing how to fight to like being black belts in like the span of like a week. So,
right. Literally breaking Miguel's back, and then within a season he's fine.
yeah. So, I mean, I will say one thing I did like better about this season is that the fight scenes, it seemed like they toned it back a bit. I mean, they had them, but it just, I guess with the whole competition between trying to get to the big association, it was more in context instead of just the craziness. I think wasn't it season 4 where they just like basically trashed LaRusso's house because they had the big throwdown there. Whereas at least with this season, it you know, even though it was
no, that was season 3.
Oh, season 3. Okay.
Yeah, because
they all started to run together. Yeah.
Is the
the All Valley.
Again.
That's right.
Valley.
Yeah.
And so season 2 they ended with the backbreaking. Season 3 they ended with the house fight, and season 4 is All Valley Part 2.
Right.
They also ended season 1 with All Valley.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was the All Valley tournament. Yeah, Sam and Tori were at the end, and that's right. Miguel bailed on it, and they had all the angst. Right, that's right. So, I mean, the whole So, I mean, there is that, and that piece. It is very tiresome now with the whole love issues between Tori and Robbie and Sam and Miguel. I could have done a little bit less of that, but it was, like I said, it was entertaining, mindless entertainment. I thought Terry Silver was the mustache twirly villain, and I think that I'm glad that arc ended because it really had it took it as far as they could have taken it. It was hard. You could tell the back end of season 5, they were like, okay, we got to figure out a way to like end this so we can get Kreese back for his return to whatever's left of Cobra Kai, given that it's just when you think it's out, they somehow bring it back in again.
Yeah. I mean, as long as Danny and Johnny, I just want to see what happens with them and the dynamic.
Something's going to have. I mean, they can't be. But or maybe that'll be the end of the series where they really do just continue to be buds and.
That's totally the end of the series.
Yeah, and that'll be it. But I mean, I guess my point is more how much longer can they stretch this out?
Oh, as long if I don't know. They just have to figure out a way to get Hilary Swank on the show, and then they can end it. That's probably all they're thinking about.
Maybe that'll be season 6 or season 7. Yeah.
Hopefully, I don't know, season 5.5 maybe.
Yeah.
The other thing that we both watched over the weekend, and it was such a short watch, I loved it, was Werewolf by Night on Disney Plus. I remember watching the trailer when they announced this at Comic-Con. and being like, oh, that's really interesting. And then you were telling me Michael Giacchino is the director. He's famous for having all of these scores. And so it's the first time we're really seeing like a composer make a directorial debut. So I thought that was interesting, and I was paying attention to the use of sound in this short story. I'm not going to call it a film because it's not long enough, and I'm not going to call it a TV show because there's one episode. Right. But it's very much like a short story. I still don't really... This was like the MCU's Halloween special.
That's what. Yeah, I mean, it had the whole Marvel special presentation.
And I mean, like they didn't do anything that surprised me. It was pretty well done with the aesthetic that they were going for. I don't have much to say about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I mean, I think it was good. I enjoyed it. I mean, as we were talking beforehand, I saved it for Halloween. I figured it was a appropriate thing to do, and it had that old. As I was watching it, I did get into it because it did have that old like 50, 60 monster film vibe. I was thinking about like even with the graphics and stuff. I mean, between that and some of the like things you see on like mystery, where they poke fun of it now, Mystery Science Theater 3000, some of those old like films. But I mean, it told a very straightforward story. I'm sure folks who are better versed in the Marvel comic and in the comic book it's based off of could talk about all how they what all this ties into and whatever, but just as a standalone special presentation, it was entertaining, and I think it shows the versatility of the MCU, because they have started to step into horror and some of these things with obviously with Doctor Strange, and the occult and the dark arts. So, and I enjoyed it. I mean, like, yeah, you're right. I mean, it was, Giancarlo did a great job as far as directing it. And, I guess, where we had another horror or tour, film like John Carpenter back in the day doing, composer director deal. So it was, I really enjoyed it. And, I guess Marvel's going to have these little special features, and will they tie into the larger MCU? We'll see. But like I said earlier, I think they show they can. This was one stepping into another genre where I thought they did it. They actually did a good job of it.
Yep, definitely. And on that note, Will, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yes, you can find me on Twitter at Will M. Polk, WILLMPOLK.
And you can find me at SJ Belmont, SJBELMONT. Please follow our crew on Twitter at CNN Nerd. Friend us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and visit our website, www.cnnerdpodcast.com. But most importantly, rate, follow, and comment on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Good night, Geek Out. You're welcome.